We are getting ready for the College World Series, and not surprisingly, LSU's there. So, of course, we're going to have Matt Moscona on with us. He is from ESPN Radio all over the state of Louisiana. Probably easier to name the parts he's on than the parts he's not. Matt, been an interesting year for the Tigers. Let me start here. I think this is the best College World Series I ever remember. Am I wrong there?
Man, that is, I would probably have to dig. But when you look at Wake Forest, the consistency they've had all year, of course, LSU, the most talented team in the country, obviously Tennessee and Stanford, just that side of the bracket 2 alone is impressive. Then you throw in Florida, Oral Roberts, who's won 50 games, TCU, who has certainly a good brand and tradition around college baseball, got hot late. Yeah, I mean, it's the college baseball powers that be have to be tickled because, man, they got blue bloods, they got brand names, they've got star players. You look at any MLB top 100 prospects, and you'll see dozens of guys that are expected to hear their names called in round one or so, the top 100 picks. Yeah, man, it's an exciting one, Chris. I mean, some years are better than others. This is definitely one of the appealing ones.
Yeah, you've got 4 teams that have already won at least 50 games in this. I don't know that I ever remember that. Sometimes you may have a year where you don't have any team over 50. Sometimes the team that wins it is getting over 50 in the final series, or maybe, getting there earlier in the tournament. You got every team in this tournament's won at least 42 games. There's been plenty of years I remember teams in this with win totals in the 30s, and yeah, it's crazy pro prospects. I mean, you could have maybe 10 first-round picks in this thing, and that's just this June.
I think we counted on my show today. I think the minimum number you hit of first-round picks is 8. So you could have 10 is certainly plausible. I left out Virginia when I was naming the teams. Of course, Virginia's
Kyle Teal's going to be there.
Sure. I think Oral Roberts is interesting because you've got a 4 seed for the 3rd time ever. And, we've seen 4 seeds, Chris. In 2008, Fresno won it. And 2012, Stony Brook, which beat LSU to advance, fell on their face and went 0-2. So I think Oral Roberts is pretty fascinating because you've seen feast or famine with the 4 seeds in Omaha. So, yeah, man, it's if you love baseball, this is one that I think nationally people are going to watch. And I'm not sure if it still is, Chris, but I think the highest rated college baseball game ever on ESPN is still the LSU Texas finale from 2009. Check me on that, but I think it's still the highest rated game ever. And you could get a scenario with maybe an LSU Florida championship game or something, a winner take all championship game that could challenge that number.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the other 4 seed was that Kent State, or were they a 3 when they got in?
They were a 3. This is only the 3rd time a 4 has ever made it.
Yeah,
so we've seen. Yeah. You mentioned Kent State made it. Of course, Coastal won it in 2016.
Coastal was a 4.
They were not a 4. No, they were not a 4.
Okay,
I'm just talking about some. I just mean lesser known, maybe like group of 5, non-power 5 schools that have gone on a run there. But this is only the 3rd time ever that a 4 has made it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great for all the reasons you said. Let's start with LSU. No surprise that the Tigers are there. They had an easier time in that regional with Kentucky than I thought. I thought Kentucky stylistically, I didn't think that Kentucky was better, but I thought stylistically they can do some things that gave LSU problems. That is not the way that it panned out. Did you learn anything new or interesting from LSU's super regional win over Kentucky?
I think the response is going to be that from anybody is that LSU's bullpen held up. Because if there's one real big question this team has had maybe persistently that people have asked throughout the year, you got Paul Skenes, and LSU's had some good starting pitching outside of Skenes this year. The real problem has been when you have to hand the ball off to the next guy, which guy is going to show up on a given day. And so to have some really nice performances in the regional round and the super regional round, I think that's probably given a shot in the arm for the confidence with LSU than anything else, because this team can hit and get it. Everybody's got good pitching when you get to Omaha, and you could always have a bad day. You leave runners on base, you don't hit in the clutch. It could always happen. But generally, to win in Omaha, you got to have a good, deep pitching staff. And that's, I think, been at times this year, a fair question of LSU. And they seem to have sorted some of that stuff out in regional and super regional play, and they're playing with a lot of confidence right now.
If they have to get an out with their season depending on it at the end of a game, barring something like bringing back Skenes 3 or 4 days after a start or something out of the box, and maybe this is matchup dependent, but do they go Thatcher Hurd? Do they go Gavin Guidry? Where's your sense of where they go in that kind of spot?
Those are the two names, and I think it is situational. So, Chris, I could see a scenario unfold where, and I really believe this, that Jay Johnson right now is no longer looking at his staff as far as defined roles, meaning starter, setup, closer, mid reliever. It's out getter, plain and simple. And the super regional finale against Kentucky was a great example of that. They went to Riley Cooper for 3 innings. He kept throwing up zeros. They kept running him out there. And when he ran out of gas, he gave the ball to Gavin Guidry, and as he kept throwing up zeros, he got you home that day with 2 2/3 of relief. So, there's a scenario that could unfold, Chris, with Skenes against Tennessee. You're up 10, down 10, and obviously is going to change things. But let's say you're on a 4-3 ball game and Skenes goes 7 1/3, and you need to hand the ball to somebody. Who that person is, I think, will tell you everything you need to know, because Jay has given the ball to guys he trusts. He trusts Riley Cooper. He trusts Gavin Guidry. Thatcher Hurd, I think, has begun earning that trust. But the reason that's so fascinating is I could also see a scenario unfold where you need someone to start your third game in Omaha. That should be Thatcher Hurd. So if you're Jay Johnson, are you thinking, I need to make sure, because I have 2 options here, maybe I go Guidry so I can have Hurd available for our third game here? I'm not necessarily directly answering your question. Your question is one out. You need to get 1 out to save your season. My guess is that person is Gavin Guidry.
Yeah.
But getting to that scenario, I think, could take a lot of different turns.
Where are they with Ty Floyd right now? Because he's been good at times, bad at times, probably more good than bad. I think has been good in the postseason. Is that one where you feel pretty good about where he is when you're Jay Johnson, you go to sleep at night?
He hasn't lost this year. It's crazy.
Wow.
He hasn't lost.
I did not notice that. Yeah.
Now that can be deceiving, right?
Right.
A team can win a game and the starting pitcher not have a great day, and that's happened. But they've backed him up. And, for those, if you're watching or listening to this and you don't know much about Ty Floyd, this is a guy who has some pretty incredible arm talent. But a year ago, boy, sometimes you say guys struggle to throw an off-speed pitch. Chris, they didn't call off-speed pitches. He was 95% fastball. That's all he threw. His ability to command his off-speed stuff this year has been game-changing, and it's why Ty Floyd is going to be a top 100 pick, and wouldn't surprise me at all if a team called his name in round 2. When Ty Floyd is on, it's a total game changer for LSU. Because if you have Paul Skenes that can give you 7, 8 innings, and then Ty Floyd can follow you up with 7 1/3. We've seen him go 8 1/3 this year. We've seen him pitch into the 9th this year. If he gives you that, this LSU team becomes impossible to beat when you can follow up Skenes with a guy like that. So he's been more good than bad this year. He gave up 3 solo homers against Kentucky in the Super Regional and exited in the 4th. But that's been the exception, not the rule for Ty Floyd of late. He pitched well against Tennessee in a game they won back in April. So, usually an offense sees a pitcher, the more often they see him, you favor the offense. But as Ben McDonald told me this week, as Todd Walker told me this week, that's true. But as he said, didn't matter how many times I saw Randy Johnson, I didn't have the advantage, So I think Ty's in a really good. He's in a really good spot. He's pitching well, pitching confidently, and I think that's also another reason why Jay Johnson is confident in saying I'll give the ball to Paul Skenes game 1, even if I have to face Wake Forest in a potential winners bracket game, because he feels good about Ty Floyd.
Yeah. Okay. So we've named so far Skenes, Floyd, Guidry, Riley Cooper, who, by the way, has pitched in the College World Series before for Arizona. Hurd, I think that's what, five names. Who else is sort of in that circle of trust at the moment?
Yeah, Nate Ackenhausen, who's another lefty.
Yeah,
that gets you to 6, and some of us are still prisoners of Skip isms, from Skip Bertman, and who of course won 5 titles in 10 years. But Skip would always say, once you get to Omaha, you need 6. If you get 6 guys, it should get you them. Now that was a different era. You didn't have a championship series. You had a championship game at the time. But those 6 for LSU, and then I would add to it Javen Coleman, who Javen Coleman last year would have been LSU's best left-handed pitcher. He tore his UCL, had Tommy John. He came back this year, and they have worked him in more. By the end of the season, he was the Sunday starter. So he's there and is available in starter or relief roles. And then Griffin Herring is a freshman lefty who at one point early in SEC play was the first guy out of the bullpen on the weekend. So now his role, he's lost a little of his role to guys like Ackenhausen and Cooper and Hurd and Guidry, but he's a guy that if they need to give him the ball in a spot, they can trust him, and he can extend as well. So I gave you 8 names, and I'll put it to you this way: if they have to go beyond those 8, LSU's in a bad spot.
Well, so are most teams, but
that's true. That's true. But you look at Tennessee, and they got 4 starters that I think all have the potential to be first-round picks. LSU does not have that.
Tennessee's in that spot. I think Wake Forest is probably in. Wake is just downright scary looking at the stat sheet. I don't know how those pitchers amassed the stats they did when it's 300 to right and 310 to left, but I think they had a 284 staff ERA. They got first-rounders, top 100 picks all over the place. It's crazy what they built. But we've gone this long. We haven't mentioned LSU's hitting, which, of course, has been the story this year. We didn't talk about it because, well, of course, we knew the hitting would, barring injuries to half the lineup, and even then they had depth, would be good enough to get them here, and here we are. Anything that we learned on the hitting? I know Tommy White had the weird deal where he missed a game or 2 in Hoover, and I think maybe the power stroke wasn't there recently, and you have these. I was out of the country a little bit during regionals, so my ability to follow was limited. We got blacked out in Mexico. That was a lot of fun to deal with. But anyway, you follow box scores where you can.
You're talking about the tequila.
Well, no, the games. I'm not. Look, as far as a partier, I'm not your guy. I'm pretty boring in that regard. But yeah. Anyway, point being, I may have missed a thing or 2 here or there, but I don't see much to be concerned about the lineup going into this thing. But you tell me.
They hit 1 through 9. They have a team batting average over 300. You got the best player in baseball in Dylan Cruz. If Trey Morgan hits 1 more homer, that will be 9 players on this roster with double-digit homers. There's so much talk about how dangerous it can be to live by the homer, especially at Charles Schwab there in Omaha. But the way we've seen the power surge, I mean, the first year they played at that park, there were 6 homers total. In 2013, there were 3. Last year, the last 2 years, there were 28 homers hit. Big Ten tournament was there last month, and there were 13 homers in 13 games played. The balls are juiced. They've livened up the bats. We just saw the most home runs hit in a season in the history of college baseball. This LSU offense is a menace. And if you kind of the way you phrased it, Chris, asking if we learned anything, the thing that I would suggest maybe that someone who's kind of casually watched LSU this year, the change has been Josh Pearson So Pearson's a sophomore, played a lot
Yeah.
last year as a freshman. Lost his spot, quite honestly. He's got beaten out and kept grinding away. And here late in the season, he has reemerged, and he's going to be starting at one of the corner outfield spots, and he's going to be batting ninth. And he's a guy with power to all fields, and the moment is never too big for him. So, and Jay Johnson, it was one of those things that some baseball coaches had, call it gut feel or whatever. And Jay made the decision to reinsert him into the lineup, and he has been rewarded handsomely for it. And Pearson in the 9-hole turns the lineup over to Cruz, White, Morgan, Travinsky below. So it's an embarrassment of riches. I think this is the best lineup LSU's had since the 2000 national championship team, which I believe hit 330 as a team, won the national title. That team had maybe 9 big leaguers on it, but no offense is perfect. Everyone can have a bad day, but this is as complete an offensive team as there is in the country. I mean, they have all the accolades they do for a reason. So that shouldn't be the thing that holds this LSU team back.
Yeah, you brought up a good point. The thing I noticed, I would look at box scores after every regional game and every game. Like it seemed like Pearson had a homer or a double or a couple of them every night the last couple of months. Travinsky was another one. Seemed like he was good for a homer a night. They're already scary enough, and we talked about this last year. The problem was they'd get to 8 and 9, and it would be just a black hole. You could might as well just go ahead and send them to the dugout before they step to the plate. This year, their 8 and 9 are as good as a lot of people's 4 and 5 in some nights.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind Gavin Dugas, who's probably going to bat 8th. He's a senior. He's one of those program guys who's been around. He let off for the bulk of the season until Pearson came back into the lineup. And Cruz had this weird time late in May where he had this stretch where he went 2 for 22. He was batting about 500. He had this 2 for 22 stretch and just plunged all the way down to 430. But they moved Dylan up to the leadoff spot. They put Pearson back in. And so Gavin Dugas is now batting 8th. Chris, he's got the second highest on-base percentage on the team behind only Dylan Cruz. He's in the 8-hole. So when you go Dugas, Pearson, the lineup flips over to Cruz, White. Well, now you do have your table setters ahead of your run producers. And, I selfishly, man, part of me would love to see Stanford beat Wake Forest, just take care of some of the heavy lifting and see if LSU beats Tennessee. But I would love to see this LSU offense. The baseball fan in me would love to see the LSU
Oh,
offense
man.
Wake.
Yeah.
I think that's the matchup most people would probably like to see in this College World Series.
Yeah, it's hard to find a bad matchup anywhere you look. Just take one team out of a hat, pitch it up against another one, and that's the kind of thing that we're having. But yeah, I'm with you. That LSU Wake Forest in a winner take all to get to the title game scenario would be fascinating.
It's a shame they're on the same side of the bracket because I think that would be a great championship series. But it just goes to show you, Chris, like so often in sports, man, it just doesn't work out that way. To where the thing that everybody wants to see in the moment and the stage, and even sometimes when we get those, it so seldom lives up to it. That's why when you do get those things that live up to the hype, it's people remember. Look around here, people still talking. Most people won't remember this, but in 2013, LSU played Oklahoma in a super regional at the box, and it was Aaron Nola against Jonathan Gray, and the game ended up being sensational. I mean, you had 2 top 10 picks who were the unquestioned aces. Nola was the national pitcher of the year, and it lived up to the billing. That's why 10 years later, people still talk about that game here. So I would love to have seen if we could have gotten LSU Wake in the championship series, but I think most people here would just take LSU back in the championship series, however it would shake out.
Yeah, 10 years later, Nola's still pitching pretty well too, by the way.
He's a special guy, and he's looking at free agency as well. I'd imagine he's probably got a 9-figure contract coming his way.
Yeah, he and his brother's still playing too.
Yeah,
you don't see that often.
Yeah, so Austin, for those that don't know that story, that's a great story too. And just full disclosure, I've known both Austin and Aaron for a long time. We went to the same high school. They're younger than me, but I've known them as genuinely good a family and human beings as you'd ever want to meet, baseball aside. But Austin was one of the best players ever to come through Catholic High in Baton Rouge, which has produced gobs of I don't need to sit there and start naming them, but suffice to say, it's been a bit of a sports factory over the years. But Austin's as good a player as ever came through Catholic. Was a shortstop on the 09 national championship team for LSU, and was grinding in the minors for 8 or 9 years, and never got his call up. Actually switched positions to catcher, and ultimately finally broke through as a catcher with the Padres, and actually was with the Mariners, and then they traded him to the Padres. But yeah, I mean, he's the everyday catcher. The guy was a shortstop his whole life. In his minor league career, switched positions and made it to the show as a catcher. Stunning.
Yeah, I can't remember too many middle infielders making the transition to catcher. I can think of a couple guys that went the other. Craig Biggio went the other way.
Yes,
was a catcher, became a second baseman, then a center fielder. But yeah, that's tough to do mid-career.
Oh, it's tough to do. Period. I mean, I can see guys that as they lose their mobility, maybe, hey, look, go stand on first, catch the ball, and slug homers, but not to make a position change to arguably the most difficult position on the field.
All right, last question or two. Trey Morgan's been in left last I've seen him. I assume they're going to stick with him there out in Omaha.
So he's back at first. So that was part of Pearson going in the lineup. So the shuffle that happened.
Oh, okay.
So the shuffle that happened was Pearson goes into the outfield with Joe Bear, who's another 15 homer guy. I think Joe Bear had actually 18 or 19 last year. So Pearson and Joe Bear are your corner outfielders. Cruz, of course, in center. And that sent Morgan back to first. So Cade Beloso, who had been playing first, now DHs, which means Hayden Travinski, who was DHing some, now is your full-time catcher. So they did have a little bit of a lineup shuffle to get Pearson back in there, but that sent Morgan back to first.
Well, you want guys who can cover ground out there, but the other thing is, boy, there's some foul territory there too. And if a ball gets by you, that might, if Trey Morgan's not there, that could lead to some trouble, or the inability to catch a foul pop-up too, which we won't. We'll leave Arkansas out of this. But anyway.
No, that is a great point, though, about the foul territory at the park. And Morgan is – listen, Chris, it's been a big talking point here for several years now. And LSU fans don't like to hear me say this because they've married themselves to this idea of Trey Morgan, this elite defensive first baseman, which he is. But Trey Morgan will never play first base at the next level. He's left-handed, so he can't play anywhere else on the infield but first. He's going to be an outfielder. And he's shown this year he is he is a great outfielder. I mean, he has made running catches, diving catches, running into the wall. Like, when you're fast and athletic and you can handle the glove, you can handle it at first, you can handle it in left. But you're right. But he is also a great first base. He is a great defensive first baseman. That may play. That may play this week in Omaha.
Well, and he's one of the smarter players since he's been on campus too. You don't ever see Trey Morgan make a boneheaded play.
That's true. He definitely has a great baseball IQ, and the power has come sort of as the fifth tool this year. I mentioned he's got 9 homers on the season, but boy, he can handle a bat to all fields. He's a patient hitter from the left side, and you make a mistake to Trey Morgan, generally he's not going to miss it. And it's funny, Chris. Trey's a guy that's really flashy, right? I mean, he's got the blonde dyed hair, and he used to keep his back pocket in his pants flipped out until he made him start tucking it in. He plays with a lot of flair, but he has really been overshadowed on this team with Dylan Cruz and Paul Skenes and Tommy White. I mean, Morgan's hitting 300, playing stellar defense at 2 positions. Nobody talks about it. So it's been an interesting year for Trey, and a year where he's going to get drafted, and this will be it for him at LSU. But I would love to see him go out with a bang. He was fantastic in the Super Regional. He was 4 for 5 in the first game. Had a 2-homer game, and really helped pace LSU in that Super Regional. It'd be great to see him play well in Omaha.
Yeah, it's going to be weird to see some kids on this team not playing ball anymore. It's kind of like when Rowdy Jordan and Tanner Allen left Mississippi. It just it felt weird watching Mississippi State baseball without those guys. No Morgan, no Cruz. I think I'm going to turn on the TV and wonder what's wrong with the picture the first time I see that.
Morgan, Cruz, Jordan Thompson has been an impactful guy. Cade Beloso, Gavin Dugas are fifth-year guys that have made their impact felt. They're going to be done. I was looking at LSU's roster. There's a chance they could lose 20 players from this team. They're still going to have a lot of talent, but boy, Jay Johnson is going to have to go hammer that transfer portal this offseason to build this roster back up and not be so young next year. They're all in to win it this year, and they got a great chance to do it. And they might just have to, because it could be a little bit of a challenge building back after this.
Matt, any parting thoughts on the way out? Any key topics we didn't get into that we should have?
I always think it's interesting when teams that play during the season meet in Omaha, and we've seen that plenty with. Well, I look when you end up with 3-4 SEC teams in the field every year, that's bound to happen. But I always find it interesting, and LSU didn't play Florida this year, so that could be a really interesting finals matchup if we get it. But the thing that I'll say that I think is just specific to LSU, they've got a great chance to win their first 3 games there. You win game 1 behind Paul Skenes, you come back in a winner's bracket game with Ty Floyd and win it, then someone's going to have to come out of a loser's bracket and beat you twice. And even if you force the if necessary Thursday game, I like Paul Skenes to come back there. The problem for LSU, Chris, is going to be if they end up in a loser's bracket. I don't mean to be Captain Obvious here and say, well, look, they should just win all their games. My point is LSU's not built to come out of a loser's bracket. If they lose either of their first 2 games, I don't see a path forward for them to pitch their way out of a loser's bracket. If they did, they'd have to slug their way out. Like, it would have to be games where they just go and put up, double-digit runs in every game. So that's the thing to watch with this LSU team, man. That in 2017, they lost their second game and came out of the losers bracket. They had a dominant, surprising performance from Caleb Gilbert against Oregon State, and they had Lang and Poche and some guys that allowed them to get out of it. This team isn't that on the mound. So if LSU doesn't win their first 2, I don't see them getting to the weekend.
Yeah, well, the good news for them is that the guy on the mound in game 1 strikes out 46% of the hitters he faces, and he's going to come up against a team that'll swing and miss a little bit. So there is that.
I do like LSU against Tennessee on Saturday. The winner's bracket game is the one that you're going to, if provided LSU gets there, is the one you're going to have to circle for this team and say, if they win it, I think they're in the championship series. If they lose it, I don't see a path for them.
Yeah, and by the way, just that wasn't a shot at Tennessee. It's just
Paul Skenes. It's Paul Skenes. I mean, Chris.
Paul Skenes could at least beat the Royals right now, right?
He's
could have beaten the A's till a week ago, maybe, and then they've gone in fuego. But
he's incredible, man. I've never seen it. You cover the SEC, you see first rounders every year. I've never seen anything like this.
No, and we've seen a lot of great pitchers, but I'm with you. He has had per inning pitch the greatest season that I think I've ever seen. And remember, it's not just the ERA, it's the offense, it's all those things that we've talked about all season. But man, can't wait to see it in Omaha. I won't be there, but I'll be watching from TV. I know you guys will cover it wall to wall on your end. If anybody in that state doesn't know where to find you, which I doubt, but let's cover all our bases here. Where can they find you?
Yeah, I would say, man, if you can spell my name, and I know it's on the screen right there, you can find me on social media. I'm just at Matt Moscona, and our station is 104.5 ESPN, and we're on every platform. You can stream us. We have our own app, our own YouTube channel where you can stream video. So we are easy to find, man. If you search us, you'll find us.
You are, and I look forward to finding you in Nashville for Media Days here in, a month now.
I'm fired up for it, Chris. I love that they move it around. I'm excited to come to Nashville, and SEC Football Media Days is the end of the sojourn through the summer. So I would say, man, if LSU baseball can get me through June, and I got SEC Media Days in that third week in July, week after that the Saints report, week after that LSU football reports, and we're home free, man. So it's been a good June for your boy so far.
Well, I was going to say, those of us who cover baseball, what sojourn? It's
That's true. That's true.
If your team gets to Omaha, then it's not much break, but we take what we can get, and we love it all the way through. Hey, Matt, thanks for joining us. I'm positive we will find occasion to have you on again in the coming months, whether that's football, whether that's talking about an LSU World Series win or whatever that is. But look forward to our next conversation. Stay safe, and we'll see you on your trip to Nashville here in a few weeks.
I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, Chris.